Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Jojo here, and I am Tiana here, and we are back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of the Powerpuff Girls, Mojo Jojo A Go-Go for the Game Boy Advance. So, last time, we've essentially concluded not only level 1, but also level 2, level 3, and level 4. And in addition to that, we also did manage able to collect quite enough of those jewels, just in case we can able to actually obtain one of those pieces of the blueprint. So far, we actually completed 4 of them so far. So today, for this video, is that we're going to be moving on to level 5, which is going to take place in Central Park and Volcano Mountain at the same time as well. So relatively speaking though, is about the fact that out of all the actual levels in this game so far, is that I feel like with level 5 is by far the hardest level in the entire game, at least in my opinion. Not only because it's lengthy, but it's also about the fact that it gives us some punishing enemy placement. So because of that, although one thing I will have to admit though right away for this point, Tiana, is that despite the fact that we did somehow manage able to went on to a top high score, at least specifically for the other 3 levels, except the first level, mainly because it does give us some bit of time to able to get used to with its entirely different gameplay style, as we pretty much used to for the sake of the forms of exploration and all that stuff. So because of that, yep, so it looks like we need to make our way to the forms of on top of the volcano. So as a result, well, we're able to actually catch Mojo Jojo for good, if depending on the forms of some stimulations or anything else like that. So anyways, let's begin, shall we? For the sake of the forms of level 5, in some cases the hardest level in the entire game, at least in my opinion, because whenever I did manage to practice this on my own time, my god, the enemy placements are so stingy on my part, mainly because, again, sometimes the hitbox feels a bit kind of weird sometimes, especially concerning for the fact that if you really want to get some of these jewels, specifically we need about 250 of those jewels in order to able to get the 5th piece of the blueprint. Well, good luck on that part, because obviously these enemies will come out of nowhere, certain projectiles also come out of nowhere, and on top of that, this particular place is just, well, very much a marathon too. So as a result, yeah, wish us luck, I guess. Whilst thankfully until when it gets to the point until the final 2 levels in the game, because like we said this before, that this game is going to be pretty short. So because of that, like we've already established that before, ever since on Tuesday. So anyways, without further ado, let's just go ahead and get onto this level, shall we? And in this time around though, is about the fact that I believe Jojo is now going to be taking over for its entire commentary for some points, whilst for me, I will simply just try to able to go ahead and beat the final 3 levels as much as I can, because I believe something tells me is that Jojo's feather did somehow ache after a while. So because of that, it's nice to able to actually switch things around a bit when it comes to likely take control of the game. So because of that, yeah, I will just go out able to focus on this for now, whilst meanwhile for you, Jojo, you can just simply just discuss upon whatever what's been happening for the sake of the forms within the past few days or so. Yeah, exactly for this point, Tiana. Obviously, if you couldn't tell, it's about the fact that, obviously, that there's going to be some bit of lag going on. So, yeah, we just have to able to try to get used to it. So, anyways though, a few things we want to explain for this point today is that today's date, of course, there is the 23rd of November today, in some cases in 2023 today. I believe we've only just got about 8 more days to go until we are approaching onto the 12th and the final month of 2023. So as a result, no matter what though, there are quite a few things we'd like to point out during that specific period. Is that well, for one noticeable thing, as you probably already expect, ever since in yesterday, both Mighty and Ray have finally finished their Let's Play of Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3, so as a result, it's about the perfect opportunity that we can able to actually let Sonic go back onto Sonic Frontiers, at least specifically until next Tuesday, at least as far as I'm concerned, at least according to the forms of what he did say, ever since in June he forms have been last Thursday, at least as far as I'm concerned. But every once in a while though, is about the fact that sometimes Sonic deserves a break for able to actually decide able to touch upon Sonic Frontiers for a short amount of time, but everything else will be come to expect at this point. So, anyways though, A few things I want to mention about this is that ever since about a couple of days ago is that, well, happy 19th anniversary of the game's release of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories for the Game Boy Advance. At least it did originally came out in 2004 for the Game Boy Advance. Oh man, I couldn't imagine for the fact that until next year, Chain of Memories, specifically the original Game Boy Advance version, obviously that game will be eventually become 20 years old until next year in 2024. So yeah, it will be time flying, you know. Despite the fact that I'm still basically stuck on a few bosses, specifically I'm still stuck on the forms of Maleficent Dragon boss fight, or to be more specifically though, I have a lot of issues with the forms of the reproduction in cartridge version of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, because obviously every time whenever I was trying to save my game, it temporarily freezes for a bit, and as a result, it did somehow manage to allow me to able to save. You know, just like the forms of how it does it for certain memory cards or memory storage space for the sake of the any other games when it comes to saving their progress or something like that. So, but either way though, chances are though that can be rather amusing at times. Maybe I will try to get another copy of the game to make things a little bit better and quite suitable at the same time. Well, it all really depends on it really, especially concerning for the fact that at this point in time, that like we said this before, we have basically done buying stuff for the sake of the forms of 2023 so far. So as a result, we actually have ourselves a pretty dang good purchases for the sake of the forms of 2023 so far. Mind you, there's only one in particular exception to this rule, however though, is that we're probably not going to get Pokemon Scarlet and Violet after all, mainly because, and also in addition to that, with DLC as well, just because not only it's too expensive to buy both of those things in one pack, but also about the fact that the graphics may look like you see from the Nintendo 64 game or the PlayStation 2 game, or perhaps even worse. So, that's just me anyway though. Oh, and another thing too, is that we did somehow manage able to finally get a chance to see a sneak preview for the likes of the next season when it comes to Sonic Prime. Now as a result, once again it's going to have like 8 episodes in particular, for the sake of the forms of Season 3, so as a result, I was expecting to be looking forward to see how that's going to turn out. Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to that as well, Jewel, especially concerning for the fact that I love Sonic so much. Yeah, I know that. So anyway, but there's the catch to this though, is that we were expecting to believe that that particular season will be eventually going to be releasing by the end of this year. Well, as it turns out, it's going to be releasing until 2024 instead. So as a result, what is this like? Is something more likely the similar situation as in New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe on the Switch? Or perhaps even maybe the European version of Mario Party Island Tour Syndrome or something like that. Although, relatively speaking though, as far as what both Mighty and Ray have already mentioned about this since in during the forms of the finale portion of Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3, is potentially speaking though, is that Mario Party Island Tour has officially became 10 years old recently. So, yeah, time flies, you know, and again, while looking back on it though, it was alright. I mean, it's not the best Mario Party game ever, because it does have some very questionable design choices, like the worst boards in the entire series, or in addition to that though, because it's filled to the brim with a lot of gimmicks and gameplay styles, and as a result, it just feels all over the place, which as a result, thankfully, in Journey forms within Star Rush and the top 100, despite it's all grid-based, so as a result, no matter what though, that it kind of reminds me of the forms of like I was playing, like a random Fire Emblem party game or something like that, except the fact that there's no RPG elements, or potentially speaking with certain violence alike. So, okay, so before I get into more details about this particular another topic at this point, is that here we are on to, without a doubt, the hardest section in the entire stage, and as a result, that we've almost going to be getting our first game over on this run. So as you can tell, we're now going to be going into yet another vertical scrolling part, and to make matters even much more difficult than the forms of how it does it in level 3, at least as far as I'm aware, is that this place is filled to the brim with not only cheap enemy placement, but it's also about the fact that I almost assume for the fact that with this particular mountain part, that it will become a lot more solid. But as it turns out, that we can able to actually clip through it. Well, to be more specifically though, you can able to actually just go and do this, and that way you should be able to actually be more protective when it comes to likely just not get hit by too many enemies, as you can tell. Especially noticeable with these Mojo Jojo robots like these guys, when they manage to able to keep on tossing that pickaxe, which it does kind of reminds me like a Hammer Bro syndrome, except, well, obviously it can be unavoidable sometimes, even though there's like too many attacks on screen or something. So, but luckily though, we did somehow survive for that particular stuff though. So either way, let's just go ahead and grab some more jewels, which I think we've actually got enough for the sake of the forms of getting ourselves the 5th piece after all of the actual blueprint. So naturally speaking though, once we get to level 6, then thankfully though, that will be the final time we're going to be collecting those jewels, especially concerning for the fact that, well, you probably already expect. So, anyways though, so yeah, I felt a little bit unfortunate for able to have we have to wait until next year for the sake of the films of the 3rd season of Sonic Prime, because from a sneak preview standpoint, it does look pretty epic in its every single way, especially concerning for the fact that Shadow is actually going to be incredibly awesome again. Or to be more specifically, I just kind of believe that Shadow is going to be the best character ever, at least ever since in Sonic 06, despite the fact that the story in Sonic 06 is just a mess. But as a result, everything else will be pretty much accounted for. So, yeah, we've met again with Mojo Jojo right here, and I get the strong feeling there's no boss fight in this stage. So, relatively speaking though, yeah, the level just ends right here. So, yeah, I guess that's something, I suppose. At least we've actually gone to the hardest level out of the way. So, yeah, congratulations to you, Tiana, for able to actually tackle for this particular hardest section of this entire stage. Yeah, thank you for that, Joel. Especially, though, because obviously that we can now move along to the next level, which is going to take place into outer space. And basically, though, like we said this before, this is going to be the final time we're going to be collecting those jewels before the blueprint is going to be completed. So, but again, it's mandatory, by the way, if you want to finish the game completely. So, but, you know, we've already able to actually explain any of those things in mind. So, yeah, it looks like that Mojo Jojo's plan was complete, and it looks like he's going to be powering up his latest and greatest and most supreme invasion, or anything else like that. That's what it appears to be, the Mecha Jojo Robo Dojo. Again, I apologize for my commentary is a little bit slightly iffy at this point. I mean, relatively speaking though, we've already explained quite a number of those things in the past 2 days. I mean, relatively speaking though, he's gonna be powered it up from the likes of the Chemical X. So, yeah, it looks like he's about able to get away, so we got to stop him. So because of that, oh yeah, there's also another thing I should probably want to mention about this as well. Is that, did you know it's been 5 years ago since Ralph Breaks the Internet came out on the big screen, since in 2018, specifically the 21st of November, and while looking back on it though, it's been 5 years ago since we've last seen the film, and I'm gonna say, after experiencing, well, recently, we've decided able to rewatch Wreck-It Ralph quite a lot of times, and able to have a lot of fun with the films of Wreck-It Ralph, because I will say, while looking back on Ralph Breaks the Internet, I'm gonna say, that film is pretty dull, and I really did not enjoy that film anymore. Well, it is fun for the first time, but while watching it back even today, that I can totally see why a lot of people seem to really despise that particular soulless sequel, especially concerning for the fact that did the writers just fall asleep or something like that, or perhaps even maybe because they have some bit of controversial moments compared to the films of how it does on the amazing Wreck-It Ralph movie, especially concerning for the fact that unlike the films of how it does it on, you know what I'm saying, with the first Wreck-It Ralph movie, is that potentially speaking now is that it's most likely focusing on video games and stuff like that, whilst in Ralph Breaks the Internet, well, they ignored that lore entirely and just hit straight focus onto the films of, you know what I'm saying, the huge emphasis on internet, and especially noticeable with product placements as well. I mean, was this like a similar syndrome as the DreamWorks movies or something like that? Well, mind you, no matter what though, it's about the fact that I can see why that a lot of people did not really seem able to go back into Ralph Breaks the Internet anymore, mainly because that film is just pretty soulless, and not only that, they ditched the films of not only Fixed It Felix for the majority of screen time, but it's also with the films of I'm not exactly sure what the other character's name was though, because obviously it's been a very long time since we've actually last watched Ralph Breaks the Internet, just because, well, again, I'm probably not going to watch it anymore, just because it just so feels a bit, well, out of place, and it's especially noticeable. They keep on bringing up with the forms of a lot of memes, like the also for the sake of the forms of floss Fortnite dancing and stuff like that, and on top of that, you know what I'm saying, with pop culture references and also product placements, that it just seems kind of feels a bit out of hand. And not only that, what I've found out is that potentially speaking though, that film is most likely focusing on the character's perspective from not only for Ralph, but also for Penelope as well. And a lot of people seem to be able to point things out is that Ralph is considerably the main villain of the films of Ralph Breaks the Internet, compared to the films of how it does on the first film, that is basically Tobo. So because of that, well, relatively speaking though, that's besides the point. And also, I still classify for saying that Wreck-It Ralph is more superior than the films of how it does it for Ralph Breaks the Internet, because you can totally see why that we no longer have that film anymore on DVD, because my god, that sequel really disappoints me. So because of that, yeah, I can totally see why a lot of people give up on it. So, but it does it pretty decently, I guess, for its box office department. Well, nowhere near as high as the films of compared to Avengers Infinity War, because I know for the fact that Avengers Infinity War does that 10 times better for its box office records. So, but that's besides the point. Anyways, there's also another thing I want to classify for mentioning about this as well, is that, unfortunately though, Turok 3 Shadow of Oblivion remaster is going to be pushed back. Well, not that very long, actually, especially concerning it's only going to be releasing until by next week or so. Like it did say during the informs of in the past few days ago, since 11th of November, which I suppose that, well, I believe Silver has completely forgotten to mention about since in Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link Let's Play so far. That basically though is that Turok 3 Shadow of Oblivion remaster has been pushed back to at the end of the month. So as a result, specifically in November, but at least luckily, as I stated this before, we've only just got about 1 week left until that game is going to be releasing on the Switch. So at the very least, it doesn't take that long to able to actually get to that point. So yeah, I can totally see that particular perspective there, Jewel, especially considering for the fact that sometimes game delays has to happen, especially noticeable they need some bit of polish to work through. So, oh, and another thing too, is that from what I've heard, that Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2 has recently got a version patch update. Specifically, let's just say version 1.2 or something like that. Like, for instance, in general side of things, is that general improvements on loading times for the Switch version, and on top of that, Switch version's performance improvements, and on top of that, they did somehow mention about the forms of tweaks on ultimates against mobs in campaign mode, and on top of that, training mode, triple perform collusions tweaks, and on top of that, characters can no longer slip off platforms without getting hit, and also SDI value now resets in on multi-hits or something like that, and edge roll cancel on frame 5 was removed entirely, and also fixes and tweaks to reflect hitboxes, and also comparisons or companions no longer count as a death in campaign mode, and on top of that, Flying Dutchman no longer clips on the Flying Dutchman stage during cutscenes, and there's also slime attack charge or slime charge attacks no longer have a knockback multiplier, only damage. So I think that was what I was thinking about anyway. Oh, it did say buddy forms of multiplier, so either way though, yeah, that's as far as I can say about it. And also they mentioned about the forms of you can now pummel characters with the grab button, so, you know, very similar to the forms of how it does it on any other Super Smash Bros. Games, I'm pretty sure. And there's also the point where basically they now mention about the forms of leaving a rank match while in a loading screen won't change your current rank points. And also in addition to that, you can now map the movement buttons for keyboard players, and there's a point where they do ranked loading and matchmaking improvements, and on top of that, I think that was the last one for the general side of things, is that they did zoom in the camera speed was in I don't know what that word is called exactly, because I know for a fact that despite I haven't exactly looked upon that much of too many gameplay footage for the likes of Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, that's just mainly because we are basically done buying stuff for 2023 for sure, so... Oh wow, I just realized that the actual stronger laser attack power-up is actually does a lot more devastating damage for the sake of the forms of some parts of Mojo Jojo's ultimate weapon, but as a result we can easily take this thing down no matter what, especially since that we can able to actually let me just go in and switch over to Buttercup quickly so we can deal with it quicker, even though it's a shame about the fact that the actual power-up decides to worn out for a while. So, oh well, no big deal though. So, I'm sure that Tiana, she will definitely kick Mojo Jojo's butt, no problem. Well, for the most part anyway though, because I believe something tells me once we defeat this stage, although since we actually got enough jewels for the time being, oh, you can also grind those jewels in here too, so that's something. So, at the very least, if you're actually missing quite a lot of those jewels that you're going to be collecting, well, this is a good spot for you. Even though, keep this in mind though, you need to watch out for those very annoying robots. As you can tell, they keep on shooting all these projectile lasers and stuff like that, which I found is very unpredictable to dodge at times, but let's just see if we can able to actually go ahead and deal some bit of damage into its mouth, and oh, that's what the star does. So basically you can able to pull off a special move right there, and that was it basically. So that pretty much takes care of level 6, and we actually got the final piece of the blueprint. And again, it is mandatory by the way. So as a result, we'll type our usual 3-letter word right there. And yeah, we basically still number 1 after all. So this will pretty much lead us to the final level in the entire game, inside the Mecha Robo Jojo. So yeah, basically though, again, it is mandatory by the way if you want to finish the game completely, and also if you want to see the actual ending. Well, basically though, collecting those jewels is important, except in the final level, just because no matter what though, we've done everything at this point. So, anyway, so now we need to able to figure out what's the secret entrance inside of the forms of... Oh, wait a minute, we have to go for this nostril? Or specifically, the monkey's nose. Ugh, that sounds incredibly gross. Yeah, I have no idea why that we have to go for that decision, but regardless of such though, I'm guessing it's likely for its, I don't know what you expect. So, anyways, let's get into the final level in the Powerpuff Girls Mojo Jojo A Go-Go for the Game Boy Advance, and I think, relatively speaking of, the final level in the game is going to be pretty long. So as a result, it's going to be more likely like an endurance marathon kind of stuff. So, well, thankfully though, unlike the forms of how it does it in the final bit, well, to be more specifically, in a lava environment kind of thing, since in the forms of him and Sig, that thankfully though, we don't need to worry about the forms of this maze structure. So it's just basically, it's going to be most likely a linear experience. So at least you don't have to worry about just trying to able to navigate the correct pathways you want to go into. So everything else will be come to expect. So... oh yeah, and there's also another thing, they did somehow fix something for Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2. When it comes to audio side of things, well, the announcer fight voice was added to the versus matches. So at the very least, they did somehow finally fix that. And also, 3, 2, 1, game voice line volume has been lowered. So that's cool to know. And also, Gerst voice pitch tweaks, and I think that's as far as I can think about it. Mind you, there are some other parts I could possibly explain about this, but honestly though, that's as far as we can able to actually think about on top of our heads. So, but relatively speaking though, I think we did somehow explain quite a number of things, as we've already expected able to mention about that. So, but yeah, for the most part, not much else to say. It's just about the fact, no matter what though, I just got able to just wait until, for a short while, at least to be more specifically, where it gets to the point until 2 months left, until whenever we able to actually get a chance to watch Sonic Prime 3rd season. So hopefully it should be a little bit more action-packed than the forms of how it does it on the previous 2 seasons. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy it for quite a bit while looking back, during the course of its Sonic Prime series, as a matter of fact, but it's just about the fact, no matter what though, the waiting times on the Netflix schedule just feels a bit kind of stingy in my opinion. Oh! Did you know, well, for the bronies out there at the very least, is that we have finally made it to the 6th and the final chapter of My Little Pony Make Your Mark. And as a result, it came out recently today, and we're pretty much gonna have to save that particular topic until when Sonic goes back onto Sonic Frontiers at some point on next Tuesday. Yeah, I was thinking about this, Jewel, especially because concerning for the fact that we're not going to spoil things for the time being. So as a result, though, we're going to have to able to give a benefit for the doubt when it comes to able to actually seeing that particular 6th and final chapter to see how it usually wraps up everything for the sake of the forms of the short-lived Make Your Mark series, because I don't know about you, it just feels like that G5 really disappoints me the most, especially concerning after that superior G4 in my opinion, especially because, you know, G4, at least for Brony community, is super iconic and all that stuff. At least, it's not for everyone though, but at the very least with Brony community, like ourselves included, that we do enjoy it for quite a lot. Especially that, no wonder why, that we've decided able to actually rewatch the iconic moments all over again, because seriously, that never gets old to me. Because I can assure you, because no matter what though, that with the actual story arcs, as well as the world theming and stuff like that, is always super unique. But that's just the reason why I feel like that G5 is pretty disappointing to me, because of the lack of unique world themes. Like, aside from the fact that there's only a little world themes to explore, but that's about it. So yeah, I just wish there was actually more world building for the sake of the forms of certain environments. Like, I know for a fact that for Friendship is Magic era, that we actually got quite a lot of environments ranging from Appaloosa, as well as the forms of Canterlot, as well as Sweet Apple Acres, Ponyville, and especially noticeable with Manhattan. And on top of that, there was also the forms of, what else is there? Oh, the Changeling Kingdom, and on top of that, there was also, oh, what else is there? Oh, Mount Eris, and also same applies with Clunched Town, I think is where it's at, and also with the forms of somewhere of the actual wasteland, or to be more specifically, I know for a fact that it's been a very long while since we've last watched something related to Friendship is Magic, ever since Enduring the Forms have been about a couple of weeks ago. Well, mind you, because I'm still never, well, I don't know, it's hard to explain about this particular stuff, especially because concerning for the fact that at this point in time, that's, you know, we're just gonna be able to actually give a benefit for the doubt, like I said before, when it comes to give G5 another chance, or should I say the final chance, before I'm able to actually dive right into my final thoughts of the forms of Chapter 6, or specifically the final chapter as a result. But still, it's incredibly weird about the fact that most of those Mario Kart 8 Deluxe content obviously do manage able to release around after when basically they G5 Make Your Mark series came out. But either way though, I'm sure that Sonic has already pointed about this ever since in the Enduring Forms have been Sonic Frontiers playthrough, specifically the Final Horizon update. So, and also, relatively speaking, though, is about the fact that, speaking of Sonic Frontiers, though, that we did somehow finally manage able to complete the Switch version of Sonic Frontiers completely. And of course, yes, much like the forms of how it does on the PlayStation 4 version, as we've already did manage able to be, you know, focused on for the time being, is potentially speaking, though, we're still able to actually go from Master King Coco's trial on easy mode. At least not only on the Switch version, but also on the Xbox One version as well, because I just simply cannot stress enough how much I hate that particular trial on hard mode, because who would have thought it was such a good idea to begin with? Well, I understand for its challenge, but this is just too much, especially concerning I'm not a big fan of the forms of this perfect puree system, so because of that, or parry system, as far as what I was meant to say for this point. I mean, relatively speaking though, it is very, very difficult to master, so because of that, yeah, I can totally see why a lot of people seem to able to just dump down the difficulty during the forms of not only on normal, but also on easy mode as well, because, God, I couldn't imagine if they play on hard mode for the first time. My God, I've noticed there's a lot of raging moments from time to time. Even nothing compares to the forms of how it does it for certain aspects of Sonic Superstars, but then again, it's probably best if we're able to mention about that game of Sonic Superstars once we get around to doing that Let's Play at some point in next year. Unless assuming, of course, for the fact that we need to able to take care of those redo 2D Sonic games again, but except during the forms of that specific point that we can probably able to expect to do maybe a redo Let's Play of Sonic the Hedgehog 4, both Episode 1, Episode Metal, and Episode 2, just because I feel like the quality is okay, but it's just that the commentary is even worse. So because of that, which is also going to be applied for Sonic Mania as well, so as a result, we're going to be able to tackle for those games first, before we dive right into Sonic Superstars eventually. So just to ensure for the fact it will improve the actual quality standpoint. So that's just to be expecting. So, but yeah, everything else will be pretty much expected and stuff like that. So it looks like we've almost nearly at the end. But again, if you dare manage to able to get game over on the stage, you have to redo the entire stage all over again. Which again, it's like a marathon too. So because of that, at least thankfully though, this stage is a total cakewalk, because at the very least though, is that you can able to actually bypass those enemies completely. Although if you can't be bothered able to actually go for a score attack, well, as you can tell, you can actually get the ridiculous amount of points in this stage, especially concerning for the fact that there's a lot of enemies to fight around here. So yeah, it's pretty generous though, especially concerning for the fact that, well, you can obviously score a lot of points as far as I'm concerned. And not only that though, Joel, there's actually a lot of chemical X's that you can able to pick up if you almost low on health. So because of that, very generous for this stage, I will have to admit it though right away. Certainly a lot more generous than the forms of how it does it for level 5 in my opinion, especially concerning for the fact that there was that little section that is extremely difficult to navigate during the course of level 5, until we discover for the fact that you can able to actually fly into the forms of the mountain bit, and then you should be safe during that specific period. So yeah, I've got no words to think about. So, but like we said this before, is that there's nothing else to talk about aside from the fact that we've already mentioned for the fact that, well, Sonic Prime Season 3 is now expected to be coming, but then again, we have to wait until 2 months time, which is kind of unfortunate, because I was really looking forward to see how both Sonic and Shadow are going to be teaming up together, ever since in Sonic Adventure 2, for the sake of the forms, we're trying to deal with the final boss in the game, specifically the final hazard, and especially noticeable during the forms have been, let's just say, in Sonic 06, when it comes to likely trying to take care of the forms of Iblis Phase 2, despite still is my least favorite boss in the entire game of Sonic 06. But, regardless of anything else though, is about the fact that at the very least though, that it's nice to see both Sonic and Shadow are going to be temporarily team up together to able to stop whatever happens to the forms at that particular point after the events of Season 2 ended. But then again, we're probably not going to spoil things too much as far as I'm concerned, but I'm sure for the fact that it will be a little bit more exhilarating. I will have to admit it though right away, that we're about to be getting ourselves a lot of credit for Shadow the Hedgehog during at some point in next year in 2024, because after all, though we're about to be seeing Shadow to able to do some awesome stuff during the forms of in the 3rd season of Sonic Prime, until specifically in January the 11th of 2024, which, that reminds me, that is roughly the exactly same day as when New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe will eventually become 5 years old during that time, despite it was a port to a Wii U game. But as a result, no matter what though, it might be pretty exhilarating. And of course, we can never forget the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 as well, so that would be pretty awesome to see how the fact that we can able to see more Shadow the Hedgehog's action for the sake of the forms of next year in 2024. So yeah, that'll be pretty much exhilarating. So despite, like we said this before, the only drawback with this is though, is that I just still cannot even believe that Mufasa the Lion King is going to be releasing in exactly the same day as Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which, let's face it though, if Mufasa the Lion King movie does still suffers the forms of the lack of emotions, then most people were not going to be interested with that. So let's face it though, we're still going to be hyped for Sonic the Hedgehog 3 after all. So here we go with the final boss in the game, which appears to be Mojo Jojo himself, and as a result, well, we did somehow activate the special move, and as a result, we can kick his butt, no problem, thanks to that particular laser eyes for Blossom. So, and that was it. That was it, new forms of the Powerpuff Girls, Mojo, Jojo, a Go-Go. So, of course, Mojo Jojo is being beaten once again. So, as a result, we can now able to actually save the day. And, well, we already did anyway. So, what I thought was a little bit weird, though, is that in the actual main menu screens, that for whatever reason, there's no music in the background, which I found was a little bit odd. Maybe because of the forms of the actual limitations of the music during the forms within the Game Boy Advance or something. Well, I don't know about you, because it has been about 2 days ago since we've last played this for sure. So, once again, that Mojo Jojo is now in a prison cell, so as a result, let's just hope that he won't be able to do some dirty tricks ever again. Well, at least until for a very, very long while, at least to be more specific in the future years to come. So yes, indeed, the day is saved once again, all thanks to the forms of the Powerpuff Girls. So, yeah, those girls are cute, I will admit that right away. Mainly with both Blossom and Bubbles, potentially. So, there you go, folks. I'm afraid there's no credit sequence or anything else like that once you beat the game. But, luckily though, there is a credit scene we can able to investigate with on the options menu. So, we're able to enter our names quickly, and yeah, that was it. That was it for this point. So, again, I apologize for my commentary, it's a little bit slightly messy at one point. I mean, that's as far as we can able to say about it. So let's give my final thoughts of the Powerpuff Girls, Mojo Jojo, a Go-Go. It was okay. I mean, nothing groundbreaking or anything else like that. I mean, sure, we have to able to deal with a different gameplay style as the forms of how it does it for him and Seek, but apart from those side of things though, it was a good time. But I will admit though right away though, despite its short length and especially noticeable in level 5's enemy placement just feels a bit kind of cramped in my opinion, but apart from those aside things though, we do enjoy those two Powerpuff Girls games for it's celebrating its 25th anniversary. So yeah, I hope you guys do enjoyed this particular playthrough, and this is me, Tiana here, and I am Jewel here when we are from the likes of the Mexi Toys. And until then, I suppose Sonic will able to eventually return back onto Sonic Frontiers until on next Tuesday, so I hope you guys may be looking forward to that, and we'll see you guys at some point in the future. Bye.